Preparing to live stream. Setting up for Facebook. Hello, my friends. Nice to see you all for another episode of Be Real, Get Real with Women's Prosperity Network. I am Trish Carr, your host for the next few minutes. So join us, and I'm going to share with you this person that I'm going to introduce you to. Amazing. What a story. And just like every week when we're here on Be Real, Get Real, you know that it's about business people, but we don't do business with businesses. We do businesses with the people behind the business. So the whole idea of this is to get connected to the people behind the business, because that's who we know, that's who we like, and that's who we trust. And when we know, like, and trust each other, business just comes. And I'm so thrilled to introduce you today to Gina Edwards. Gina has been in the Women's Prosperity Network community, I don't know, Gina, 12 years? Some long
Probably,
time?
Yeah, close to 10
time.
at least.
At least 10. And Gina is a creative person. She's a writer. And she is someone who not only shares her voice, but supports other people, encourages other people, inspires other women in particular in sharing their voice and standing in their power. So, Gina, it is such a pleasure to have you here. Thank you so much for being with me today.
I'm so happy to be here. Thank you, Trish.
It's my pleasure. And, when we first got started together 10, 12 years ago, you were working in a job. I think you were still working and you hadn't yet quit your job. And you've been on quite the journey with your business and what you've been able to accomplish. So bring us up to speed.
Well, yes, I was still in my corporate job when I first joined WPN. And that's kind of what I want to share some of with you today, because a lot of things have changed since then, but a lot of things have gone back to the way that they should be. So,
Tell me, what have you been doing and what's shifted?
So what I have been doing is supporting women, particularly women writers, in claiming and reclaiming the power of their voices. And for some of them, that was getting words on the page. For some women, that was being more public, maybe speaking from a stage, maybe just getting more comfortable at doing their book launches and that sort of thing. I'm a certified creativity coach, so I also, help women get over their writer's block and just be able to live the kind of creative life that they want to live. And what I realized was the process that I have been going through over the past 10 years since I've been involved with WPN has been a process of not only me supporting women in claiming their voices, but it's been a process of me excavating myself so that I can share mine. Because what I've come to recognize is that for the last most of my life, I have been what, if you're familiar with Julia Cameron, who wrote the quintessential creativity book, The Artist's Way.
Yeah, The Artist's Way is one of those, if you're not familiar with The Artist's Way, it is the handbook for creativity, isn't it?
It absolutely is. Julia Cameron is often called the godmother of creativity. And the book is not just for, visual artists or painters. It's for writers. It's for anybody that wants to live into their full self-expression. And she talks in that book about something called being a shadow artist. And a shadow artist is someone who makes way for other artists to fully express themselves while they are living vicariously through that experience. So they're not
Gotcha.
using their own voice. They're not living into their own self-expression. And so, I grew up in stories. I've always wanted to be a storyteller. And as I went into adulthood, I took that dream and molded it into what our society expects us to do, right? We've got to make a living, we should have a job. So being a grown-up and the realities and the practicality of that took me away from my dream. Creative writing just became a hobby for me. And so I rationalized that all of the jobs that I had were related to wordsmithing in some way or another. I worked on newsletters, I got to write marketing copy, but none of that was really my personal self-expression.
Right.
So when I first started with WPN, I was in an editing job, and I thought that was going to be my retirement job. I loved it. I had learned through all of the other jobs that I did. I'm a really good editor. I didn't, in my creative work, I didn't really want to be involved in the machinations of the traditional publishing. You have to find an agent, you have to find a publisher. And then once you do get a publisher, it can be several years, especially for fiction. It can be several years before you actually get the book on the shelf.
Yeah, absolutely.
And I didn't want to go through that. And then back then, self-publishing wasn't like it is today.
Mm-hmm.
So it didn't have a good reputation. And so I just kind of put all those dreams on the back burner, and our culture teaches us, girls specifically, girls and women, to just, be good and be quiet. Yeah. And what I realized was that I was self-inflicting another layer of silence on myself by not living into my dream of being a creative writer. So I woke up one night, in the middle of the night. My husband was traveling, hadn't been able to settle myself in terms of, there was something going on that just didn't feel right in my life. And so I woke up in the middle of the night, I pulled a book off the shelf, and it was a book by Dr. Eric Maisel. He's one of my mentors. He was my creativity coach trainer. And this was before I got involved in the program. And this book was called Fearless Creativity. So I was curious, what was Dr. Maisel doing now? So I got online, found out he was teaching this creativity coaching program. And I was like, that's it. That's what I want to do. Okay. So I signed up for this 2-year program, was in that program. I was doing my job, my editing work at an environmental company. So I told myself, that's good work too. And still I was like, this is not feeling right. So a friend asked me, why are you staying in this job?
Yeah.
Interestingly enough, the answer was healthcare.
Well, it is for a lot of people though, isn't it, Gina? I need my medical.
So many people. And it was a practicality. And so she looked at me and she said, so you are staying in a job so that you will have health care for the job that's killing you.
Yes.
Don't you see the irony in that? Because this job was, 80 hours a week some weeks, 70 hours a week. And then we'd have a light week, and then we'd go back to 70, 80 hours a week. And so there was no room for my creativity at all. And so when I first got involved in WPN, it was probably about 1.5 years after I joined, when I finally jumped ship from the corporate world. Right.
I remember when you quit the job.
I didn't know what I was going to do, Trish. Right. I really didn't. I mean, I thought editing, creativity, supporting women. I know you're probably familiar with the Richard Bach quote, we teach best what we most need to learn.
Yes.
So I realized that what I was doing was I was squelching my dream to write so that I could support other women. And in doing so, that I was being a shadow artist. I was not truly living into my full self-expression. So everything that I've done along the way in these last 10 years or so has all been what I thought was work to help other women, was really work on myself. because every single thing that I was doing taught me something. Every single woman that I have worked with has taught me something about my own creativity, about my own voice, about really living into that self-expression that I have been stifling so long. So right now I'm really actively moving into building my writing career. It's going to be a very non-traditional path. It's sort of a revolutionary way of doing it, but I am really excited about being able to create direct relationships with my readers, because I think that that's going to be key for writers in the future.
So when I look at, these last 10 years and stifling your own creativity, like you said, you did learn with every person you worked with, but you were just doing what you needed to do to put a roof over your head as well, right? I mean, when you first quit your job, the first thought in your head was, how am I going to replace my salary?
Right, right. Yes, so there was definitely that practicality, the necessity to put food on the table, to pay the rent. And that was driving a lot of my decisions. But what I realized was that there was a greater thing going on underneath the surface. And that was that everything that was being presented to me as opportunity was something that I really needed at the time to make me ready to be able to use my voice now.
Right? Because everything that happens to me is the best thing that can happen to me. That's one of my mantras that I got from a great book, the Zen of Happiness.
Yes.
And everything that happens to me got me to this place. So are you now going to be pursuing writing fiction, which is where you really wanted to be, right?
Yeah, like I said, I grew up in stories. I've always wanted to be a storyteller. I'm from the South, so I love Southern fiction. I love historical fiction. That's what I love to read, and that's what I've always wanted to write.
Is that like a William Faulkner, Somerset Maugham, those kind of books? Who do you like to read?
Flannery O'Connor, Eudora Welty, love all of those kind of books. And so, I'm exploring this sort of unconventional path of subscriptions, which is not really a new thing. If you think, most of us know about Patreon and how that works. So it's similar to that, in that I will be able to connect directly with my readers, with them supporting me in my writing career, so that, the financial burdens are not top of mind. They're not taking me away from my creativity. There's a new platform called Ream, REAM, like a ream of paper, and it's going to be launched in May. And so I've been exploring that, teaching myself about that, and getting my page set up there. So if there's anybody that wants to hear more about that, I'm happy to talk with them about that. I'm going to be putting my own writing out there on Ream, through Ream, and also showing other women writers how to do that.
So how does the financial side take care of itself?
Similar to the Patreon model, where you have sponsors or patrons, and they will be getting, depending on what tier that they decide they want to participate in, they will be getting my writing. If they are a writer and they're also wanting to learn how to build their career, they will be getting not only what I write, but they will be getting a lot of the behind the scenes things, like, what am I really doing to try to build my writing career? What mistakes am I making, so that they don't have to make those mistakes, so that they can learn from what I'm doing, so that they can try to do the same thing, build their career.
An unconventional way. So do you, so since you're writing fiction, do we start with a long story? Are we starting with short stories? Is there
typically in this subscription model, the author releases, most of the authors that are going to be on Ream are long works. They do long works, and they release a chapter at a time.
I love it.
Some of them may be short story writers, and they'll be doing, short stories. And I do a little bit of both. So I'll have some short stories there. I'll have chapters. Some writers are working on multiple things, and so they may have different tiers for the different kind of writing that they want to do. If you like like my friend Kim Boo York, she's also a WPN member, and she writes in several different genres. So depending on what tier, you would participate in, you might get this type of writing or this type of writing from her. So there's lots of different ways to do it. And that's what we're exploring right now.
I love it. I love it. So I don't know if authors do this regularly, but you remember the movie and the book, The Green Mile by
yes.
Stephen King. So when he wrote that, he released small pieces of it, and I would get the first book and it would leave me hanging, and I'd have to wait for the second book. And I was on the edge of I can't wait to get my next book. So I love this idea of releasing a chapter or two or however many at a time, because it caused such anticipation for me.
Yes.
I couldn't wait till I got to the next one. So what a wonderful platform.
It's interesting that it's actually a throwback to something that was done many, many years ago, when we still had printed magazines. Do you remember those?
I do, yeah.
But in the very, very early days, there were lots of writers who would release a chapter in, Harper's Bazaar,
right,
or, some of the older publications, and readers would wait for the next one. So it's kind of a throwback to that in a way.
Yeah, Tom Wolfe was the one who did that. He would release in Rolling Stone. Is that who I'm thinking of? It was also, it's not going to come to me, but that old way of doing it worked so well. So I'm so glad it's back.
Yeah.
That's fantastic. So are you still working with other authors, or now you go exclusively doing your thing?
I am still working with other authors, shifting a little bit of the focus, because I want to be able to expose other writers to this possibility. If they're interested in developing their writing career, to be able to show them what the subscription approach looks like, and how they can do it as well. So that's going to be my main focus. I'm still doing the creativity coaching and some other things as well, and still hosting writing retreats, so that we can get writing done, right?
Yeah.
Create environments where we can actually get writing done. But that's going to be my focus now.
That's really, really exciting. Many people who have a book inside of them think, oh, I don't know how to get it out there. I don't know what to do next. So this is the perfect platform. So I invite all of you to be in touch with Gina. Gina, what's the best? I know the website is ginahoganedwards.com. Is that the best way to reach you for more information?
Sure, either that way or ginahoganedwards@gmail.com.
Easy.
You want to email me?
Very easy. ginahoganedwards@gmail.com. And get in touch. If you have a book inside of you, it's got to come out. What would you, if you were to give advice to somebody who knows they have a book inside of them, but they haven't started it yet? How do you get started writing that story, that book? What would be the first steps?
One of the first things, and this is kind of based around one of my favorite exercises that I've done multiple times at writing retreats, is really getting clear on who you are and what you believe in. And so that might be, sitting down and journaling specifically about that. Like, what are your values? What is it that you want to live into in this world? What is it that you can stand behind? Because whether we know it consciously or not, all of those things show up in our writing. And sometimes it's also a reflection back to your history. What did you grow up being exposed to? And just sometimes writing those things down makes them in our higher conscience. And so we start to recognize them in the patterns of our writing. I can look back at stories that I've written over time and go, oh, that theme keeps showing up,
That's great. Thank you. That's great advice. So any of you out there who have a book in you, get started. That's the first thing.
Yes.
Just get started and be in touch with Gina. If you'd like to know more about the Ream platform, it sounds really great, Gina. It takes that financial issue off you, and you can do what you want to do and do what you love and be expressed, because it's so interesting. I once, when you can be that full expression of yourself, every other area of your life works. I had a client once who was a realtor, and we were talking. I was like, well, what lights you up? What do you love to do? She wasn't really doing well in the career. And she said, I love writing poetry. And I said, well, let's work on that. And she did. And she wrote a book of poetry, and voila, her real estate business exploded. Right?
Wow. I love that.
That's what happens for us when we can be the full expression of ourselves. So I am so excited for you. I cannot wait to read what you are going to put out there.
Thank you.
And thank you for letting us know about the platform. And thanks for being with us today.
Thanks for having me. I've enjoyed it.
It's my pleasure. Make sure you reach out to Gina. You can get her at her website, ginahoganedwards.com, or ginahoganedwards@gmail.com. And once you know this delightful lady, you definitely want to go to one of her writing retreats, because I hear nothing but amazing things coming out of that. Like, I was stuck and I got it out, and I had quiet and I had coaching. So be sure to reach out to Gina, especially if you are a writer yourself. Thank you. All right. Thank you, everybody. We'll see you again next week with another episode of Be Real, Get Real with Women's Prosperity Network. Take care. Have a wonderful, wonderful rest of your day, everybody. Bye-bye.